Alright guys, so you're here again and we're doing another comic book video. Uh, let's just get right into it. First up I have is issue of the Punisher, number 13. This is from I think this is the, I want to say this is like the most recent Punisher run. Maybe it's not, I don't know. But I bought this for like $1 from my local Books A Million. And I bought it just because I like Punisher. He's one of my favorite characters. Well, I actually read the story, and it's a really good story. It's a very, very good, self-contained, kind of one-shot story. You know, I had never read any of these issues before, but I didn't feel like I needed to. I felt like all the information was in this issue. And this is a really good story. You know, it's basically a story about, Frank has, I guess, Frank had went somewhere, had fought somewhere for a while, and he comes back to his hometown, or wherever his base is in this story. And he goes to his little safe house, and he discovers there's a gun missing, on his gun rack or whatever. And come to find out, some little kids, came across his safe house, and one of the kids stole a gun from it. And basically, the whole issue is Punisher, kind of backtracking, questioning people, finding out where the gun is, and the gun keeps moving around. The kid ends up selling it to a pawn shop, and and all this and that. And eventually, the gun finds its way into this woman's hands, who bought it for protection against her abusive husband. That's part of like a leader of a little local gang or something. And Punisher ends up having to cross paths because he's trying to get the gun back. It's very important to him. So he ends up crossing paths with this gangster guy, and it's just a cool little issue. There's a very interesting. I won't really get into it. I won't get into like a reveal, but there's an interesting reason why he wants this particular gun, why this particular gun is important to him. So yeah, it's a really cool little story. Then we have Star Wars Droids #1. This is from Dark Horse. For the longest time, Dark Horse were like the Star Wars comic people, and I think they still are actually. Or maybe it's probably Marvel actually. Probably Marvel makes all the Star Wars comics now. I had to think about that for a second. But yeah, Droids is pretty cool. Hopefully, I've never read this, but hopefully it's a lot better than the Droids cartoon from the 80s. If anybody remembers that, it's god-awful, man. It's god-awful. And then we have this X-Men number 231 on County X-Men, kind of just a generic 90s, cover. Nothing really too special. It does have, like, magic and all that in the cover, but whatever. Then we have this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Bebop and Rocksteady #5. I don't even remember buying this, honestly. I think what happened was I was buying a bunch of books from Books A Million, and I think this got slipped into the stack I bought. I think I just accidentally grabbed it. I ended up bringing it home and buying it, and I didn't really want to because at the time I was going for all for dollar books. And this was at full price, so I ended up paying the full price for this, which I would never did, because I'm not really into modern books all that much. The only time I ever buy modern books is either A, for speculation, B, because it's like it's a really cool varied cover that's rare or something that I think I can possibly flip it at some point, or C, it's because I can get it's a good price on it, like they're $1, or they're 50 cents, or 25 cents, or something like that. Because there are places in my area where I can get books for 50 cents or whatever, and they're always modern books, and not necessarily like new releases. Sometimes they're like books from 5-6 years ago, but that's still modern. Then we have Morbius the Living Vampire, number 3. Cool cover. I actually like this cover. I don't think there's anything too special about this comic. It's kind of a more modern book, but I like the cover. I like Morbius. He's always kind of an interesting character. I first was introduced to him in the old Spider-Man cartoon from the 90s. Did not like him in the cartoon. I thought he was a really interesting character. The whole idea of a man-made vampire that's created from science is just interesting to me. Then we have this really cool Heroes book. This is basically a tribute, like a one-shot tribute they made that Marvel put out during 9/11. So as you can see, that's 9/11, 2001. And basically, it's like a sketch art book kind of thing. I don't think there's any. If I remember right, there's no story in this. It's just a whole bunch of really powerful images by different artists that worked at Marvel at the time. And it's basically just a tribute to the events of 9/11, the real heroes of 9/11. or of the world, I guess you could say. And yeah, I mean, it's just really good, some really powerful imagery. Like this cover, right? This cover by Alex Ross is amazing. You know, you got the fighter, and he's carrying somebody out of the rubble. And I love the detail to the visor. It kind of almost looks, the visor almost kind of looks like a Cyclops, Cyclops' visor. So I thought that was really cool. I wish I was in better condition. It's kind of banged up a little bit. I think those actually go for a little bit if you have them in good shape. I don't know. I'm not sure. Though I saw one time going for a pretty good amount, but it was also autographed by like a bunch of the artists. So that's probably why it was going for that much. Then we have Solar, the Man of the Atom. I don't know what issue this is because Gokey always does this. They never put the issue count on the cover. I basically bought this. I think I paid like $1 or $2 for this, which isn't really that bad. I mean, it's in bad shape, and it's got somebody wrote Bob on it, which is kind of annoying. But it's a really cool cover. I mean, I love this Gokey kind of painted style cover. You got this, Solar's giant size fighting against all these airplanes. It kind of really gives off kind of a Godzilla vibe a little bit, Just really cool cover. I'm going to show it again. I don't know if you guys can really see. It's just such a great cover. That's classic Solar. Back before Solar was bought by Valiant, and then he was later bought by Dynamic, and like the character Solar has had so many homes and so many different publishers. But if I remember right, Gokey is where he originated from. So yeah. Then we have the Secret Empire, this free comic book day issue number 1. I'm assuming it's issue number 1 of the story. It's a pretty cool cover. I like the cover. It's also got kind of a painted kind of look to it. I say a kind of look because I don't really know if it's painted, but it does have that kind of look to it. So, but yeah, I know a lot of people were very, very, in their feelings, about this storyline. A lot of people didn't like the idea that Captain America was, actually a Nazi all these years, or Hydra agent all these years. And my thing was, I didn't really care because I knew. Deep down, I knew it wasn't going to be real. I knew it wasn't going to be real continuity, and if it was, well, I mean, it kind of was, I guess. But actually, I'm not sure. But my point being, I knew I knew it wasn't going to be consistent. Like I knew it wasn't going to stay that way. And if it was main continuity, I knew it wasn't going to stay that way for very long. They would change it up. They would reveal some kind of twist or turn, which I believe they did actually. So, but yeah. It's a cool gimmick. I mean, I gotta give him that. It's an interesting plotline gimmick, but it's not something that that the character should have had stayed with him forever, which is not. But yeah, and that's how I feel about a lot of these gimmicky kind of storylines. They're great for a couple issues. Just change it up, but you don't need to keep it that way. I feel the same way about the Punisher War Machine thing. Like, I mean, I like the idea of Punisher, taking up the War Machine mantle, wearing the big ass armor, blowing criminals sky high, that's cool. I mean, that could work for, several issues. There'd be some interesting stories. Do I want that to be the standard that Frank Castle has now? Like, do I want Frank Castle to always be the War Machine? No, I do not. But I think it's cool for, however long it lasts. But 2 years from now, I don't want to be reading comic books and Punisher is still War Machine. I mean, that's not what I want. Next up, we have X-Men number 2, and I guess this is just a different run of X-Men. Pretty cool cover though. It's kind of a classic '90s cover, but you got that Magneto, and it's that classic '90s Magneto art. Where he's got where you see all his gray hair and stuff. Like they love to do that in that time period. They love to just have him without his helmet on, for whatever reason. So yeah, kind of a cool cover. I like it. Then we have this comic book. So I have this guy that lives in my area. He's a local artist. He's really, really talented. And he's a big comic book fan, fanboy or whatever. And he actually makes some of his own comic books. Like he self-published a few different books. I think he's gotten like maybe 2 or 3 issues in some of them. And I'm a big supporter of the guy. Like I'm always, like he always does these little what do you call them? Like book signings or whatever at our local comic book shop where he sells his books. And I always end up picking up a copy and getting them to autograph it. I've picked up pretty much everything that the guy's ever made. He's made a handful of books, and this is one of the ones he's made. His name is Johnny Segura III. You know, you could look him up on Facebook or whatever, or DeviantArt. Well, I don't think he has DeviantArt anymore, but you can look him up on Facebook. The man is very talented. He has a very unique art style. It's very anime kind of. It's very anime manga influenced. Yeah, and it's, you know, very ultra violent. He's very interesting man. Like he's very you know, out there. You know, he loves to draw like violent sexual stuff. So, you know, if you're into that kind of stuff, you're gonna like this guy. But yeah, this is one of his comics. It's a ridiculous title, a ridiculous story. It's two bean cans fucking. Yes, I said fucking. And apparently, when you do self-publishing, you don't have to worry about like censorship and all that. So yeah, it's a very interesting cover. Basically, the story is like it's essentially kind of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles kind of thing, where, you know, you got these. I want to feel weird even saying this. You got these different tin cans. You know, they have different food items, and they all get kind of like brought to life and become sentient. And they basically they all have different colored tags, like, you know, like that kind of represent who they are. Kind of, that's why I kind of say Teenage Mutant Turtles. And basically they have to fight against, if I remember right, the villain is some kind of like cook or chef or something that's he's trying to eat them or something. It's just a ridiculous story, you know. But it's just ridiculous violence, action, you know, sex. One of the tin cans gets fucked a lot because, you know, that's the title of the book. And yeah, it's just really funny, really weird, you know. And I think if I remember right, there's even one of the tin cans is a can of refried beans, and he's of course he's a Mexican descent, so I thought that was kind of just, you know, crazy and funny and kind of politically incorrect, but, you know, whatever. Next up, we have Kingpin #1. This is a Civil War II tie-in. It's also a variant cover, you know, from the Fried Pie variants. Another book I got from Books A Million for $1. I don't know how much people actually pay for these, but I always see that they retail for like $6. You know, like at Books A Million. Like if you buy these when they're not on sale, they're like $6, which is kind of crazy for a single modern book. So I don't know. I don't really know how much those kind of books, you know, I don't know how much those Fried Pie variants actually get you. So it might be interesting to check out one day. Next up, we have Bloodshot #1. This is the first issue, or first appearance of Bloodshot from the new Valiant run. Really cool cover. I really like it. You know, kind of has a Punisher vibe. I mean, Bloodshot always has a Punisher vibe, but yeah. I've talked about him a little bit before. He's a really cool character. I mean, he's getting more popular now with this new run, you know, and the whole new Valiant flagship. But he's just a really cool character. He's kind of like a hybrid between Wolverine and Punisher, and he's kind of like that. He's kind of that classic. It's kind of like that classic military super soldier experiment gone wrong. You know, out for revenge against his creators kind of storyline. But it's done in a clever way. His power set's kind of interesting, and, you know, he's just, you know, it's just cool. Like, one thing I like about him is that, especially in the new run, he's got like this, you know, he's got this really strong healing factor, but he needs to, like, in order to keep his healing factor up, he has to maintain a lot of protein. Like, he has to have like high amounts of protein, depending on how much he's hurt. So there's stories where like, there's a story, for example, where he gets like hurt really bad, like maybe he gets his legs blown off or something, and he has to end up crawl around. He's out like in the, I don't know, rural area somewhere. And he has to crawl around, and he finds a cow. So he ends up eating the cow to get enough protein to heal himself back up, which is just crazy. But yes. Then we have another Valiant book from the new Valiant run. This is Archer Armstrong #5. This is a cool one because it's the first appearance of, well, it's the first new appearance, I guess you could say, of the Eternal Warrior, who is a pretty major player in the Valiant universe. I'm surprised it took him that long to put him into the new Valiant universe. He's basically Armstrong's brother. For a little bit background information, Archer Armstrong is basically a series about this guy who's immortal, who's one of 3 immortal brothers. Who Eternal Warriors is another one, but I'll get into that in a second. So it's a story about 3 immortal brothers that basically were around, at the beginning of time. Whenever you find out there's like this other civilization that was before us, and basically. Eternal Warrior, who's one of the brothers, I think it was the younger brother, he died or something, and so they all wanted to the other brothers wanted to bring him back to life, and they were having this debate over it because they were using this machine that was way too dangerous to use, and they used it, basically they were able to. The machine actually killed everybody that lived in that civilization and destroyed that civilization, but it gave them immortality. And so they're kind of like these lone survivors, guardians of the lost time. And they all and each one of the brothers is kind of like they've developed a different kind of perspective on things. Like, for example, this guy on the cover, Eternal Warrior, he's pretty much he's dedicated himself and his immortality to being the protector of Earth and being this kind of this warrior. He's dedicated himself to combat and to fighting and to preserving what's left of the world and all this. And the other brother, like the younger brother, Ivan, or how you say his name, he ends up becoming a time traveler. He's more of like an explorer type. He wants to just go out and see everything and learn everything. He doesn't really care that much about conflict or about staying in one place. Kind of reminds me a lot of Doctor Who, actually. His comic book actually reminds me a lot of Doctor Who. And then you have the middle brother. Wait, no. Oh, actually, Eternal Warrior's in the middle. You have the oldest brother, Armstrong, I think. And Armstrong he's my favorite because he's basically like the guy who wants nothing to do with anything. Like, he's just, he's not really a fighter. I mean, he is a fighter, but he prefers not to fight. He's just kind of that kind of guy that kind of goes with the motions. He loves, his favorite things to do is get drunk and read poetry. That's his things in life. And he's very much he's very much kind of a weird beatnik kind of guy. He likes to just kind of sit back and watch history unfold, and he's very passive. But but Archer Armstrong is basically a story of how over the years Armstrong has kind of like created enemies, this organization that wants to destroy all the immortal people in there. So they basically like kind of basically raise this kid that's like got special abilities, and they raise him to be this warrior to defeat the immortal brothers, and that's how the Archer Armstrong comic goes. I think I'm getting too far into that, but yeah, I mean, check it out. It's a really cool book. I could literally talk about the Valiant books all day because they're really good and I'm really passionate about them. But Archer Armstrong is a really good title. It's a very good it's just a really good buddy cop kind of, not buddy cop, but like buddy movie, a buddy comic book. It's these two characters that don't really get along that well at the beginning, but after a while they start really liking each other, and they always bicker a lot. They're always bickering, but they do have a really interesting friendship to each other. So yeah, just check it out. It's probably my favorite. It's probably my second or third favorite Valiant book. It's definitely in my top 3. Then we have the final book we're going to talk about today is The Son of the Hawk. This is number 13. I really don't know all that much about this character. I just know that this is like, that you had the World Hawk storyline where, like where basically all the really smart people, like, that in the Marvel universe, like all the really, I think they're called like the Initiative or something like that. It's basically like a 6-man group of like just kind of like the really tactical, smart people in the Marvel universe. Like you had Doctor Strange was on this group. You had Professor X was on this group. You had Reed Richards was on this group. That's 3. You had Submariner, the King of Atlantis was on this group. That's 4. I can't remember who the other 2 people were on this team. I really don't. I think Black Panther might have been on it. Maybe, I'm not sure. But yeah, there's basically this group of a group of like just really influential, powerful figures in the Marvel universe, and they basically got together and decided that the Hawk was just too dangerous to be left on Earth. He was just too much of a hazard. They couldn't really kill him. They didn't really know how to kill him, so they just kind of trapped him and then shot him into space. And the idea was they had picked out this planet that was had plenty of food and stuff on it and all that, but it was kind of a vacant planet, a peaceful planet where he could just run, he could just live his life happily, no stress. But of course the Hawk got angry while he was on the ship, and he started smashing shit around, and he caused the ship to kind of go off course, and he landed on this gladiator planet, where they captured him and they forced him to fight in an arena. And eventually, of course, because he's the Hawk, eventually he ended up winning, and he kept winning until he eventually became like a famed champion, and he started getting all this fame and fortune, and he eventually ends up defeating the person that rules the planet, and he becomes the king of the planet, and he takes it over. He becomes their champion, and he eventually goes back to Earth with his army and declares war on Earth because he's mad and they try to treat him like that. It was a really cool storyline. It's probably one of the best, most interesting storylines the Hawks ever had. Because there's not so much you can really do with that character. But yeah, it's really interesting storyline. And he eventually gets married to this princess or whatever on the planet. He eventually has a kid. This guy. Well, I think that might be the guy. I don't know. Actually, I don't think it is, because I think his son looks totally different. But yeah, his son's like this kind of green, big, kind of half-looking guy. Like he kind of reminds me. He looks more like She-Hulk. He's just, he's not as big. He's got that kind of small stature, but still really strong. And yeah, it's a really cool series. Fun fact: Thor Ragnarok is actually loosely based off of the World War Hulk storyline. Like they kind of just took small elements from the World War Hulk and just kind of shoehorned it into the Thor movie, because the whole Gladiator planet with the Hulk being a champion wearing armor, that's all from World War Hulk. But yeah, they just kind of threw certain elements into that movie from that storyline. But yeah, that's all the comics I got for today. As always, I appreciate you guys checking these videos out. And yeah, see you guys later. Hope you're having a good day. I mean, I think at the time of recording this video, it's like December 20th, so Christmas is just in a few days. So happy Christmas, Merry Christmas, you filthy animals.